My fear is that some people, I think, are trying to lean on the shovel and say, look at the polls, these polls, and Trump always under polls, and he does this, so Trump's up 3, 4, 5. Hey, maybe that's the case, but that's theoretical right now. Reality is the electorate we bring on November 5th.
That's former Trump White House advisor and chief campaign strategist, MAGA media mogul Steve Bannon, who had just been released hours before, hitting the ground running with his very popular podcast and holding a press conference out of New York. The unabashed populist was released after serving a 4-month sentence in a federal correctional institution in Connecticut for defying a subpoena from the January 6th Unselect Committee. Bannon's release comes just days before the election. And what timing. But the jailing of Steve Bannon is also a preview of what the left does to its political opponents when they have total power. You've heard the left complain that if the Republicans take over, they're going to jail Democrats. Well, look at what they're doing as they're in power. They're doing the very thing they accuse the right of potentially doing. If Vice President Harris somehow prevails in November, I fear this is going to be the standard, the norm. But joining us to weigh in is Indiana Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. Congresswoman, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bannon, it's no surprise. He jumped right in and he's dived right into the work. I'm stunned when I would look at the charges again. He's thrown in prison for defying a subpoena. When you see on the other side, our own DOJ and the attorneys on the DOJ side constantly defying questions from you and your colleagues. When you send questions over to these institutions, they ignore it. They ignore subpoenas. They ignore requests. They get no ramifications at all, like what we've seen them do onto Bannon and right-wing voices.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a total hypocrisy when they talk about, oh, Republicans are a threat to our democracy and republic. No, Democrats is a huge threat. And Steve is a tough cookie, I have to tell you. I've been on his show, and he's a true patriot that's willing to, to fight a lot and really put his, freedoms on the line. That's really where people are tested. And ultimately, they created this fake committee, which was totally unconstitutional, didn't even have, Republicans appointed by Republican minority leader on that committee. So it was truly done against the due process and typical processes that happen in Congress to really try to play politics. And from day one to try to take President Trump down from being his presidency. So that's unconstitutional what they done with all of these investigations. Republicans actually promoting the rule of law. They want to have closed border, and they have to have not cartels running that country, but actually have the law working, not have criminals running on the streets. So this is the very opposite. They're able to spin it, and with propaganda from mainstream media and lies, they were able to somehow spin it. But I think true patriots and fighters can show that to the American people that it's worth fighting. And I think, no matter what people agree or not with Steve, he was not afraid to go to jail for the freedoms for our country. And it will take Americans like that to stand the ground, because we cannot be intimidated.
I think it's just backfired on them terribly. They wanted to make an example of Steve Bannon by throwing him in prison. He made an example of them. At the end of it all, we are seeing how intent these people are to take down the America First movement, and it's not going anywhere. But what is also not going anywhere, I fear, Congresswoman, is this machine in Washington where, like I said, you've got DOJ attorneys who are doing the exact same thing. They are shirking questions from Congress, questions from your committees. They're ignoring Congress, ostensibly their bosses.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.